Members, we now turn to the Charities Amendment Bill, and the question is that clause, sorry, are they all, the whole lot?
I think all of the bills, so that clauses 1 to 12A.
So and I draw to the attention of the House that all clauses 1 to 12A will be considered as one debate and voted upon separately. So, so the question now is that clauses 1 to 12A stand part.
Mr. Chairman.
I call Poto Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start my contribution by adding my voice to those across the House to say that I have been just so impressed by how Kiwis have reached out to their fellow man over the course of the last few days. Our emergency services have done an extraordinary job, and it has been very distressing, and I want to send particular aroha out to the families of children who will be wondering just what is in store for them, and just sending my thoughts to everyone who has been impacted by the events of the last couple of days. Mr. Chairman, this Charities Amendment Bill came from a carve-out from a Statutes Amendment Bill, and I want to recommend and commend the work of the charitable sector and a couple of groups in particular, Hui and Sue Barker from Charities Law, who actually saw within the Statutes Amendment Bill the 4 clauses that made up Part 3, I believe, which has now been carved out to become the Charities Amendment Bill. And the reason that they saw this as being very important is that they wanted an opportunity for the community and voluntary sector to have a chance to submit on what they felt were some of the implications by Part 3 of that of the Statutes Amendment Bill. And why it's important to raise this is that there were some real concerns with some of the submitters who did actually eventually submit to the Government Administration Select Committee, ably chaired by my colleague, Honourable Ruth Dyson, and a very good committee, and it was very interesting to be part of that particular process. The community sector were concerned about a couple of particular issues, and I'm going to deal with one of them now, and that is about what they saw as a threat to their ability to raise appeals. You know, their right to appeal was, as they thought, under some threat. There is a very valid reason why they felt that this was so, and part of that is because over the course of the last few years, the charitable sector has felt itself under some pressure. Some charitable organisations, you know, the requirement to be registered by the Charities Board, there are a series of criteria that need to be examined by the Charities Board, and there is also the threat of deregistration if some of those elements aren't met. One of the key issues, Mr. Chairman, is about the definition of charitable purpose as it sits within the legislation. We know, supporters of the charitable sector know that that there have been promises of reviews of charities legislation by this government, and that those reviews haven't occurred. But one of the significant parts of that would have been the ability to review charitable purpose within that, because it is the current definition comes from a very old statute, the Statute of Elizabeth, 400 years old, and it is right and proper that we should actually start thinking about in this modern day and age, what is charitable purpose? What is within? What should we? How should we define charities? Are charities their purpose, their ability to attract favourable tax status and the like? It is overdue that we examine that. But for the purposes of this legislation and for the examination of the clauses that came through the Statutes Amendment Bill, the charities were very concerned about their ability to appeal, because there have been cases taken to the court where charities have been deregistered because their definition of charitable purpose did not meet what the Registration Board set out. But they have had to actually go to court to defend their constitutions, the Constitution of Charities, and in some cases they've actually won those cases. And there, I want to point to the National Council of Women, who fought in the High Court to ensure that they could retain their charitable status. One of the submitters to the Select Committee, Sue Barker, was instrumental in supporting the National Council of Women in this particular case. It wasn't an easy case to defend. It did come at some cost to the National Council of Women, but at the heart of it was the definition of what a charity like the National Council of Women could use as charitable purpose. Now, I would think that gender equity could be considered as charitable purpose. The Charities Registration Board, of course, did not. And as a consequence of that, the charity, Mr. Chair.
I'm quite happy to take a seat. I'm quite happy to give the member another call, but if the purpose of the committee stage is to examine the bill and what it does, not what it doesn't, and it's also to relate to the House and committee those submissions that were made in the course of it. So if the subject of what she's saying, which doesn't appear to be part of the bill that's in front of us at the moment, was raised by submitters, then she really needs to reference that and not just, and I don't know if she's doing this, but not just make points that may well be close to her heart, may involve charities, but don't form part of the bill. So if it was the subject of specific submissions that were made before the Select Committee, the members free to be able to refer to those as an aside, but they aren't substantial parts of the bill, and that's what committee stage is about. She may well want to make those points in the third reading, but not during committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Total Williams.
Thank you. What I do want to do, Mr. Chair, is actually take us back to, thank you very much for your guidance. One of the submitters was Sue Barker, and why I reference her is that in the official report backs, a lot of the comments were made about her particular submission and her view about the ability to appeal is central to the particular argument I want to make, because they reference this the Sue Barker and charities law in particular. And Sue Barker had been instrumental in ensuring that the National Council of Women in particular did actually have a successful appeal. So my point, Mr. Chairman, about that is that at the heart of my particular discussion in this call is that she felt in her submission, and it was backed up by submissions made by other organisations, including HUIA, that she felt that the right to appeal would be under threat if we allowed for particularly clause 61 to proceed. And that's for anyone who's involved in the charitable sector, something that we have ensured we do not lose the ability to do. It is at the heart of all of our law, actually, the ability to appeal. And groups like charitable organisations feel a sense of, are under some restraint when it comes to their ability to take cases to the High Court. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your guidance. That was the substantial part of the call that I wanted to make. And we want to ensure that charities have the appropriate opportunity to appeal to any decisions that may affect their ability to operate in the charitable sector. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.